As we have only 20 minutes, we have to be very quick in a way. First of all, thank you very much for this wonderful film. I'm so happy that I could see it on big screen and not only small monitor and enjoy this wonderful film. First of all, I would like to ask you, Gustav and Hanna, how did you come to the idea of this paradox representation?
It was by chance that I stayed in Cologne in 2004, and there was this retrospective at the Museum Ludwig. And I worked in this exhibition for about 3 to 4 hours of Edward Hopper's paintings. And I had the idea that most of his paintings were film stills. And I thought, if I ever make a fiction film, I only have to invent the story between the pictures, or what happened before or after. Because he showed one moment, and this was a very specific and explicit moment he showed. And as Hanna is coming from the arts as a painter, and I'm educated as an architect, I thought this would be a perfect collaboration to work on a transformation of Edward Hopper's paintings to a film. We never intended to make a documentary or a film in honor of his paintings or about his paintings, but we tried to make a metamorphosis, a transformation of one medium to another medium.
But this transfer from one medium to another is a very paradox and not an easy solution, not to make a kitsch, first of all, and second, how to keep the atmosphere of this existentialism, because we have seen several films, like a cartoon film from Van Gogh, and what I consider personally as a kitsch, and that's so easy to slip. You didn't slip any kitschy sequence, but there are secrets how you created it. First of all, I want to say, because I forgot it, I wanted to say that this is a great existentialist film. So for me, it was a kind of Camus, paradox Camus, a surrealist Camus, that's connected.
Yeah, that's good that you say surrealist, because Edward Hopper is always regarded as a realistic painter, but he is not. I mean, Edward Hopper is more a surrealist than a realist. And you can find it easily out by looking at details, which made it very hard to realize it in the film, because he is using 2 to 3 suns to create his light situations. You see at the same picture 2 light spots, one on the wall and one on the floor, which is not possible through one window. So he used techniques that are used in film. And he was a passionate film goer. And that's why his paintings already look like stage designs. But
and also, I think it's useful to know that he used to work as an illustrator for magazines. So if you look at the pictures, they always have a sort of story included. So for me, it made sense to know that he started as an illustrator.
But there is something very specific how you set up the set. So could you tell us, how did you design these torsions of furniture, of deep perspective, of axonometry, and the colors?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Edward Hopper is surrealist because he is not following any rules of perspective. So if you try to reconstruct his paintings, and I had to build maquettes first in small scale to find out myself how this room functions. And you see it, if you look carefully, that sometimes the tables are bent like that the furniture gets big, enormously big. And in order to make this as he painted it, you had to really build enormous objects and enormous furniture. And we made, I think we see it in this slideshow or so, after the film, Hanna and me, we made a huge exhibition in Vienna in the Künstlerhaus, where we exhibited all the furniture, for example, and all the paintings that Hanna painted for the film, and all the objects like the umbrellas or things like that. So this is because he himself worked like somebody who picked up elements from different scenes, like, for example, in the scene which is playing in the cinema, we know that he used elements of 3 to 4 different cinemas in New York and built his own one. So he had this kind of collage idea.
And could you tell us how did you choose the colors? Because it is, with Hopper, we know that it's not homogeneous, one, but in film, but you skipped that naturalistic, illustrative mode of painting, and you created something very special where we feel ourselves, at least I myself, feel that this is somehow, I have a headache from it, you know. So it's something not clear, something, but so near and so touchy at the same time. So how is that?
There were some decisions to do. Mm-hmm. And this was very clear. First, I have to say we started to work together very early on this project. Mm-hmm. And for example, because my task was not only to paint, this was the, let's say, the consequence, but the task was to make a color concept for it, mm-hmm. which included, and we talked a lot about this color concept. One part of this color concept is that light is never painted. Light is always projected. The question was also what will be paint and what will be three-dimensional. Because everything which you see outside the window, those are pictures, paintings.
Yeah.
The paintings on the wall are paintings. One other, so this was to decide what will be three-dimensional, what will be a painting. The other decision was, and one has to know that those paintings, we visited the museums because we were invited for other things in the museum, so we visited the museums. We went to the museum with a color scale, with a palette. And we went to the pictures, and with the color scale, I numbered them, the colors. I took every color, which is not so easy because...
So it's a Pantone color scale?
It's a Pantone color scale.
So you went to each picture, each element of the painting, and you identified...
Yeah, but this is a decision.
Yes.
And a very important decision, because, as you know, a painter, if he's painting green, he's taking, in the green, you have a whole game of colors. The decision was to make it monochrome, which is very important for this film. Yes. Because the film, this makes him even more what you called not spooky, but tricky or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it opens the distance.
Yes.
Even more than the furniture, or it's an ensemble with the furniture.
Yes.
Everything is unreal.
Yes.
As you.
One has to say also maybe in this context that Edward Hopper was very well worshipped by the abstract painters, like Rothko. Rothko loved Hopper, but Hopper hated Rothko. So this is also very strange, because if you look at his details in his paintings, he is so much in color and in abstract that it's almost obvious that that the abstract painters loved him. Go for
what was a more philosophical
standpoint?
No, I realized something. I realized something during the work that there is no, we bought Hopper books. There's the same painting in 10 books. You have the floor is from blue to red.
Yes.
You go to the museum, you see the painting in a certain light. If you take the painting out, so there is no reality in view.
That's very interesting.
So, to tell it in short words, but this was a very interesting.
But that's your art. How you take one color for choosing one of the spectrum. And that's really crazy. Before I give the floor to the audience, because we have so short time, I must tell you that Gustav and Hanna, mainly Gustav, is on the Austrian avant-garde film since 40 years, and we have the same track in some manner. Gustav did a lot of very interesting found footage film, like Film Ist and other films. So this is not the first film of Gustav Deutsch and Hanna Schimek. I don't want to go into that detail, and now I would love to give the microphone, if you have any questions, to the artists.
Just to go back to what you were saying, Hanna, that you had this decision that everything which is in the outside will be painted. Why? Because, I mean, that's the point where so why not photo? Or, because basically you had to repeat the gestures of Hopper. I mean, so that is not turned out. It's not changed. It's the same as in the paintings, basically.
Your question is why not photo? Why not?
No, why painting? So I think if you on every other detail went for an interpretation or something that or a change, and there you didn't. So why?
The paintings anyway. They are the paintings which I painted very large scale. One was, I think, 10 meters on 6. I painted it on the floor. Very interesting experience, alone, walking on the painting. But and this painting, in reality, it's more like this. So anyway, it's an interpretation. And it shouldn't be, I mean, the decision, I can't tell you.
So
but I think I have the feeling it's the right decision.
Maybe you know it. What kind of photograph would you use? I mean, you cannot use.
It's a photograph is just a vague idea. I was just really thinking that did you ever have any discussion about it that should be painting or should not be painting? Because I mean, that's.
No, we decided that everything that he shows, also the landscape, including outside the rooms, should be painted. This is not why should we?
There I understand it. It's clear.
Yeah, but in a way, it's also interesting that if you look at the paintings on the wall, for example, in Rome, in New York, for example, the one where she is opening and closing the window, two of these paintings are pure abstract. They are only gray and brown, nothing on it. So again, there is a relationship to abstract painting. And in the other paintings, you can discuss whether this is a wood or whether this is not a wood. So we discussed this, and Hanna had to paint in the original, it's maybe 3 to 4 centimeters, and she had to paint it like that. Even the wood of the Central Park, it was 6 to 7 meters. So this was quite something.
And also, I mean, this is another aspect, but somehow it was a great experience to sleep in another person's, in Hopper's world.
That's what I suspected.
Yeah. Although I found him and especially him, I read the biography. It's horrible. I don't like him at all as a person. No, but what I wanted to say, what was interesting, because sometimes I had to paint in the stage, although there were painters, but I had to paint in the stage, and then it was a strange feeling to paint in a painting. So it's funny.
Thank you.
Which scene was the most difficult to accomplish? Which one was the most difficult of all of them?
I think the most difficult was the hotel lobby. Also because we had this idea of the reference to the skin of our teeth by Thornton. And in his play by Thornton Wilder, in the end, the parts of the sets go up in the sky. And I wanted to have this as a reference. So this was very difficult to manage with the columns to leave. And I mean, this is also what I liked thinking about the stories is that you have an idea, and I had the idea that she was kind of rehearsing as an actress in this hotel lobby. And then I had seen The Skin of Our Teeth when I was 15 years old in London. And I remembered it so well because it had an enormous impact on me. And I thought, maybe she could perform or she could rehearse The Skin of Our Teeth. And I only found out that at the same year that Edward Hopper painted Hotel Lobby, Thornton Wilder's Skin of Our Teeth was released in America, in this theater. So I thought it's a coincidence and I cannot go it. So, but it was, in terms of the set design, it was one of the most complicated.
Excuse me, was it conscious to make the movie in the mirror of the political acts of that era?
Yeah, this is when I was thinking about the character, and one has to note that Edward Hopper had for 40 years his own wife, Josephine Nivison Hopper, as a model. And before she was also a painter, but before she became a painter, she wanted to become an actress. So she acted out all of these roles for him. And then, because the relationship between him and her was not very good, and also his career went up and her career as a painter was neglected also by him, I had the idea that I want to have a strong woman. I want, in contrary to what Josephine Nielsen was for Edward, I wanted to have a very strong woman who knows what she wants. And it was then easy at that time that she has to be part, as an actress, she has to be part of a political theater group. And this was the group theater at that time, and then later on it was the living theater in America. And with this idea, all the other political elements came in. And when I had to decide, because I wanted to have each episode play in the year that Edward Hopper painted the painting. So when you see the date, this was the year he painted the painting. And I wanted to have each scene play on the same day. So I decided on the 28th of August 1963 as a starting point, because this was the March for Freedom, the first time that 250,000 people, most of them black, asked for their civil rights. And this was something that I thought everybody from this generation remembers. Like everybody from us remembers some event, political, that happened during our lifetime. And the Civil Rights March for this period was such an event. So I had each episode play on the 28th of August, except the last one when we hear already the radio broadcast from the 28th on the 29th in the last picture. And it was also because Edward Hopper was very right-wing in his opinions, and he was almost racist. So that's why I decided also to make a counterpoint in this, with this movie, because I didn't want to follow him. I'm not an Edward Hopper epicon. I'm not an Edward Hopper lover. I'm a filmmaker who works with found and very. I like his paintings, but I didn't like his political point of view.
Anybody else having a question? If not, I'm just referring to this historic layer through news that you use it in other films, and I also love to use it as a reference in home movies or private Hungary series or anything, because this is the small world, a unique universe of Hopper, but it's also in its abstraction and existentialism, it's also a kind of imprint of life. So sometimes shop windows or theater setup look like this. So it's fake and not fake, real and not real. And with the historic layer and elements you chose keenly, always from at least 3 geographical points and referring to the painting's date or the situation you want to grab. So this gives even more surrealistic, because it pretends that this is real. And this is, I find it joyful, very, very artistic in the deepest philosophical sense, because you can double these meanings that we project into Hopper's picture, each of us in an individual way, but you showed us something very specific, because his paintings are zoomed in, and with the voice and news, you zoom out. So there is this fluxus, not only moving in the picture with the camera or event or the actress. So it is with its meditative course or meditative status, because it's all these still moments are really, I think you created a moving painting in a way, for me.
Thank you for this summing up.
Wonderful last word.
Yeah. I just wanted maybe to add that history is made up by the stories of ordinary people. And if you tell a story of a woman at that time, you reflect what's happening around her via her reactions. And this was what I intended to show, that individuals are the important history makers.
What I add, because I found it, I think people understand.
But we are recording it.
Okay, sorry. You also didn't do it, by the way.
I'm sorry. I will make a post-synchron.
Okay, we will not fight. I just want to add that the main actress is a dancer, which is very important, because she I mean, maybe you have to mention it, but I mention it because it's a very important element of the making of the film.
The film is so slow in terms of the movement, so I had always to slow her down, and it's hard for an actor or an actress to pose and look in the same direction the next day and move in the same speed the next day when we make a close-up. So when I made the storyboard, I already discussed a lot of her movements with her, because the whole film is choreographed. And she had to accept, or she had to know if she's able to do that. Because, again, in terms of Edward Hopper's surrealism, he is not following not only any perspective rules, but he is not following any anatomical rules of body. So sometimes it's impossible.
The bodies are very bad painted. I can tell.
Sometimes
not bad.
The legs are 1.5 sizes longer than they are normally. So if you try to sit on a bed like his painted lady does, you find out that it's impossible.
Also, just to add to the speed of the film, and how you created this whole oeuvre of the film and Hopper, I had the feeling just right now, as we talk about the speed of the movement of the actress, of the dancer, I think I had now the feeling that Bob Wilson is using also this, and other great theater, like no theater, Japanese no theater. So it's not something unusual, but you exploited it, because with this, how should I say? I don't like the word beautiful, but her movements were so deeply coming from inside. Of course, it was instruction, but her movement was really like a modern ballet. Okay, we have to stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. Thank you for
the audience.